Good evening, and welcome to Monday, News 5 Special Edition. I'm Phil Wilson.
And I'm Twyla Young. Tonight, we'll take a look at a new social trend. Kids, more and more of them, are getting hooked on booze.
And somebody gave me a beer, and I drank it. And I just got so drunk, and I was getting with all the guys and talking to everyone, having all the girls get mad at me. But I really liked that, when the guys would talk to me. And I felt good. I wasn't scared anymore.
And we're going to look at one of the newest things in elementary education. It's also one of the oldest.
We're an alternative program. We emphasize the basic skills. We do demand some respect for authority in the school among the students and teachers. We require homework. We spend probably 30 to 50 minutes more a day on the basic skills than does the average school in Illinois.
And after 20 years, Superman is back on the silver screen, and following the Man of Steel is a barrage of money-making gimmicks.
A month ago, we couldn't keep the Superman books in stock, but now it's slowed down. It's always that way when the movie first hits. When the movie first hits, the interest is tremendous, and you just can't keep up with the demand. The interest on the Superman isn't as sustained, it hasn't been as sustained as long as the interest in the Star Wars or the Star Trek.
With all the prescription pills that are being passed around these days, there's increasing concern that we're becoming a nation of drug addicts. The all-time favorite drug, of course, is something most of us are very familiar with. It's liquor, booze, the all-American drug. At almost any social gathering of American teenagers, there is an increasing use of alcohol. During the drug scare of recent years, many well-meaning parents suggested alcohol as a safer alternative to marijuana and pills. Now the kids are taking them up on it, and a growing number of sons and daughters are becoming teenage alcoholics. Teenage drinking, of course, isn't new. Most of us can remember taking that first illegal drink. It was part of growing up, like trying that first cigarette. It was cool. But what has changed is that young people today are drinking at an earlier age. They're drinking more often and drinking greater volume. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the average age that adolescents take their first drink is 13. The Institute estimates that 40% of American kids have tasted alcohol by the age of 10, and that more than 3 million teenagers are problem drinkers. Drinking by young people has become such a problem that millions of dollars are being spent for counseling and prevention programs. One of them is here at Iowa State University.
I know a majority of students maintain every Friday. It means they go to the maintenance shop to drink and have a social good time. And it becomes part of their routine. And they don't realize that they're drinking all this time. They know they're going to go and do this. And they don't really give it conscious thought, they're going to go and get drunk. It just becomes part of their habit, and they don't really consciously deal with it on that level.
This class is studying the effects of alcohol on the human system and what the complications can lead to.
Passing out, which occurs right here, is not really just passing out. Passing out is like your body's last and most beautiful defense mechanism. It's like your body is saying, hey, maybe you want to die, but I don't. Out you will go. Your body will actually knock you out to keep you from drinking that lethal dose. The part of your brain that controls those functions that keep you alive is so well protected that by the time alcohol penetrates down there, it'll penetrate through this part that activates the pass-out mechanism.
Every year we hear of some college student who has taken a fatal overdose of alcohol. Death often occurs because the person's body wasn't equipped to handle an overwhelming volume.
This particular individual was not an alcoholic. He was an ordinary person that went out, consumed too much alcohol, overdid it, and went to sleep and did not wake up. This guy had consumed something like 24 drinks in 3 hours.
Get into a habit of drinking.
The safest thing to say is that this kind of alcohol overdose usually occurs after you consume a large amount of alcohol very fast. It very often occurs after doing something extremely foolish, like chugging hard liquor.
Students in the class are shown this film, which presents several case studies on how young people can get hooked on booze. Many of the teenagers in this film say they started on alcohol because it helped ease the pain of stress and made them more confident in social situations.
I'm 17 now, and I began drinking when I was 13. I went to a New Year's Eve party, and I went with this guy, and I hadn't really gone with guys before that. And the whole time at the party, it was so uncomfortable. I was so scared. And all the people were older, and I didn't know them, and they were all drinking. And somebody gave me a beer, and I drank it, and I just got so drunk, and I was getting with all the guys and talking to everyone, having all the girls get mad at me. But I really liked that, when the guys would talk to me, and I felt good. I wasn't scared anymore.
Aside from the rise in teenage drinking, another drug phenomenon is affecting both teenagers and adults. Authorities find there's an increasing abuse of prescription drugs, especially tranquilizers. Sometimes they're used in combination with alcohol, and anyone who keeps up with the news will tell you the mixture can be fatal. Donna Sharp of Des Moines turned to drugs and alcohol after her marriage fell apart. She went on a 3-year binge, and she's lucky to be alive.
I went to a psychiatrist, and I was given a number of drugs, and Valium was the one that finally I became addicted to. I believe that I would be addicted to any prescription drug, though, that's mood-altering, anything. Codeine.
How many different drugs were you prescribed?
Well, by the end of my career, which was about 3 years, I was taking 10 prescriptions. I had 10 active prescriptions.
From the same doctor?
From the same doctor. And the last month, when my final crises came, I had been taking somewhere between 30 and 60 pills a day.
A Des Moines man, who we shall call Tony, recently kicked a long-term addiction to Percodan, a strong drug often prescribed as a painkiller. It almost killed Tony.
I started having bad headaches, real bad headaches, and I went to a doctor and he gave me a prescription for Percodan. And I got hooked on it, good.
Well, you say you got hooked on it. You mean pretty soon the prescription wasn't enough?
Yeah, right. So I started going to other doctors to get more of it.
How many were you originally taking for pain a day?
When I first started, one every 6 hours.
And when you finally really got addicted, how many were you taking?
20 a day.
20 a day?
20 a day.
It got to be a system. It got so that I would get up in the morning and start out by taking a diet pill. I weighed 78 pounds at that time, to get me going, and drink a lot of coffee. And then about mid-morning, I couldn't handle it, and I would begin to shake. And so I would start taking Valium, and I can remember having a schedule of what time to take what, but I knew I was abusing.
Because when I'd get up in the morning, I'd have to have a pill before I could do anything. Like a alcoholic's got to have a drink before he can shave. So I'd get up, it'd wake me up sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning to take them pills.
I lost weight. I didn't eat. I lost a year of my memory.
In your judgment, how long can a person take Percodan before they become addicted to it?
Well, I say if anybody takes Percodan over 3 months, they're hooked on it. Because it's just that strong of a drug.
So a lot of people are running around hooked, housewives and what have you.
Right, I would say so.
The thing that happens that people don't understand is that when you're taking prescription drugs and drinking, it's not like having 2 pills or 2 drinks. It multiplies rather than adds together. And the effect can be deadly.
It will ruin you after a while, because it will drag you down. And it will get so that you can't do nothing until you take that pill. Because if you're sitting at home and your wife and kids want to go someplace, you got to take that pill before you can get up and do anything. That's the truth. And if you ain't got that pill, you can stay right there where you're at because you ain't got enough energy to move. Just the way it works.
It runs your life.
It does. It runs your life.
Both Tony and Donna say drug counselors help them kick their habit. But both of them stress the single most important weapon in beating an addiction is the strong-minded determination to do it yourself.
Has to be the key ingredient. Coming up next, we'll visit several classrooms in Des Moines to find out what's new and what's not so new in elementary education and how to tell the difference. One of the more alarming things about public education these days is the apparent drop in the overall achievement of students. Well, whatever the cause of that, one of the results of the drop is a shift in emphasis, especially in elementary education. So we checked around to see where early education is headed these days. These students study with familiar books, sitting in ordered rows, listening to instructions from a teacher. These students work with the materials that they choose, explore their prepared environment, and are assisted with their self-education by an adult who indirectly leads their learning.
Show me which fraction is what. And fifth.
Is this the newest thing in education? No, this is Montessori, a system of child development and education that's been around since the early years of this century, and we'll look at it again in a moment. This is the newest trend in elementary education, back to basics. This is Des Moines Traditional School, one of several alternative programs that parents in the capital city can choose for their youngsters.
We're an alternative program. We emphasize the basic skills. We do demand some respect for authority in the school among the students and teachers. We require homework. We spend probably 30 to 50 minutes more a day on the basic skills than does the average school in Des Moines. Certainly, I feel that in some respects we're doing some things that perhaps was done more back a number of years, such as spending more time on the basic skills than do some other schools. But again, we're using the most modern techniques in teaching and audiovisual aids and materials.
There are a lot of reasons that parents and the community in general have developed a renewed interest in strong basic academic education.
The traditional school is one that responds very directly to some of the concerns that some of our parents have. There has been a considerable number of expressions about emphasis on basic skills, stronger, structured situations such as, emphasis on greater discipline, citizenship. There, some parents feel that there's a great deal of permissiveness, and they want something with stronger control measures. And they felt, those that respond to it, felt that they had obtained that at the traditional school.
Educators will tell you that a couple of decades ago, society began to demand that schools do something to cut down on the increasing dropout rate and keep kids off the streets. In response, curricula changed, standards were lowered, a broader range of interest-stimulating courses and activities were introduced into public schools, and the percentages of youngsters who stayed on to finish high school rose dramatically. But somewhere along the line, parents, along with others, began to feel that the fundamental reason children were in school was beginning to get lost in the shuffle.
470.
The emphasis here, besides on multiplication tables and verb tenses, is on dealing with authority, competition, and a structured world. During the 60s, those elements of education became less important in many schools. The Montessori system is centered around emphasis on the individual, and into that atmosphere, the decades-old system came into its own in this country.
We believe that lots of discipline is necessary, but we don't believe the discipline should come from outside. It should come from within the child. You were asking me some questions about did a child need to experience failure? Oh, well, we think he needs to learn discipline to face these situations. He has to discipline himself because he can't always depend on somebody else there to tell him no or that he can't do it. He must learn to discipline himself, and this is the way this system works, self-discipline.
Montessori Children's House, which has been operating for 11 years, has about 90 students in its preschool, kindergarten, and elementary programs. It takes children with state-certified teachers through 3rd grade. Both the proponents of Montessori education and the parents whose children attend the traditional school believe in their kind of education. And in fact, most educators will tell you that there is no one right way to educate children.
Well, there can be wrong philosophies of education, certainly, but I don't feel that there is a single philosophy that's appropriate for every child, no. We know, for example, that children learn differently. They have different learning styles, and of course they respond to different kinds of stimuli. And as a result of that, we try to adapt our programs to those special needs of children. Socioeconomic class, various cultures and subcultures, we find respond to different kinds of education. And so we feel that we must be flexible to provide what we feel will meet the special needs of every child.
But these two forms of early education represent two widely divergent attitudes about the place of the individual child in the educational system. In the traditional school, the child as member of an organized group. In Montessori, the child as individual around whom his or her educational environment revolves. And perhaps that's the telling thing about educational trends. Both the Des Moines Traditional School and the Montessori Children's House emphasize the basic skills of reading, writing, and mathematics. But they go about their teaching in a manner that reflects the desires of these children's parents. Different styles of education swing back and forth like a pendulum, from strict to permissive, from basic to broad, from highly structured to self-directed. But these changes seem to be based more on changes of attitudes in our society than on radical alterations in the theories of what kinds of things children ought to be learning. Phil, there's a real strong feeling among all the educators that we talk to that parents play the pivotal role in their children's education, and that's not just in supporting the learning process, but that their own attitudes about themselves and their children actually help determine what kind of education their kids are going to get.
I don't think they're going to find much disagreement either. Thank you. There's something new going around these days. It's called Supermania. Monday's Bob Pyle has been looking into this mania and is sorry to report it's contagious. And anyone who goes near Superman the movie is likely to catch it.
The Adventures of Superman. Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman!
This is a Superman most all of us remember. The Man of Steel, played by George Reeves, with Lois Lane, played by Noel Neill. Those were the good old days with low film budgets and camp acting.
I'm all right now, see?
Oh, boy. Now get up there and take care of those guys.
No, Jimmy, I'm going to let the police do that. I have something far more important to do. Kryptonite is the only thing in the world that can hurt me. Therefore, this sample is going to disappear forever.
That series died in the late 50s, and most people thought we'd never again see the likes of that superhuman hero of the cinema again. But 20 years later, Superman returned, bigger and better than ever.
From a doomed planet in a distant galaxy to a fantastic underground hideaway, from the Fortress of Solitude to the bustling city room of the Daily Planet. Look, up on the screen. It's Superman.
The $50 million movie was 4 years in the making. It opened in Des Moines last Christmas to some of the largest audiences the River Hills management has ever seen.
And they applaud when he comes to the rescue. There's the Superman theme that starts playing when he comes to the rescue. Oh, they applaud wildly and just yell and clap and scream and holler, and it's just a great fun movie. It's not just the adults, it's the kids too. The kids are getting into it along with the adults.
Big as Superman is, the movie still has a long way to go to match the biggest moneymaker in cinema history.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars.
Star Wars started it all. And when we ran that movie 13 months here, which is an all-time record for being in one theater for 13 months, that Hollywood got on it in a hurry. They got the message loud and clear. That's what people want to see now.
Star Wars, rated PG.
Well, Superman opened bigger than Star Wars. Star Wars kind of caught people off guard. There wasn't as much advance pre-publicity on Star Wars as there was for Superman. So our opening week or two audience was larger. I do not think Superman will outdistance Star Wars.
Superman may be a multi-million-dollar movie today, but this is where he got his meager beginnings, back in 1938, in a 10-cent comic book.
The first Superman was an alien from within the solar system. He was not anywhere near as powerful as the Superman of today. He could, well, if you remember the George Reeves TV show, he was able to leap tall buildings in a single bound and could outrace a freight train, which is what he could do. And as you see in the movie, he's able to move faster than the speed of light and can even move the planet faster than the speed of light. So he's changed quite a bit.
If there's a Des Moines expert on Superman, it's Ken King, operator of what he calls the biggest comic book shop in Iowa.
An average person doesn't think that the average person can do much. And to fight the establishment, to get anything done, we have to have superpowers or super abilities, and so we have superheroes, and that's what comic books pretty much are.
Some say Americans thrive on superheroes, and that may explain why people return again and again to see Superman.
I thought it was really good. I really liked it.
Why did you like it?
Because Superman is gorgeous. He is. He's so cute.
Do you eat?
Yes. Yes, I do. When I'm hungry.
I thought it was very nostalgic to see and very enjoyable.
Clark Kent may seem like just a mild-mannered reporter, but listen, not only does he know how to treat his editor-in-chief with the proper respect, not only does he have a snappy, punchy prose style, but he is, in my 40 years in this business, the fastest typist I've ever seen.
But it brings back memories from 15 years ago. Just memories of Superman, what he represents and symbolic.
Disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
The American way is capitalism, and it seems nearly everyone is or wants to cash in on Superman. Already, Superman books and magazines are crowding bookstore shelves everywhere.
A month ago, we couldn't keep the Superman books in stock, but now it's slowed down. It's always that way when the movie first hits. When the movie first hits, the interest is tremendous, and you just can't keep up with the demand. The interest on the Superman isn't as sustained, it hasn't been as sustained as long as the interest in the Star Wars or the Star Trek.
Originator of the Superman character, DC Comics, has released 500,000 copies of a $2.50 collector's issue of the 1938 comic which Superman first appeared. Williams says he can't keep them in stock. Besides the movie, another area where Warner Brothers Pictures hopes to paint that big S green is in record sales.
Well, Star Wars was a phenomenal seller right from the start, and it's still a pretty steady seller now, where Superman has sold a few pieces here and there, and we haven't sold as many Superman since it's come out compared to like Star Wars albums in 1 month.
Warner Brothers says if Superman doesn't gross at least $80 million in the United States, it'll be considered a flop. River Hills Anderson says if audiences crowd into theaters across the country the way they packed into his theater, Warner Brothers won't have to worry about having a super flop on their hands. He says all the films makers will have to concern themselves with is the super hype for the sequel, which is scheduled for release sometime in 1980. For Monday, this is Bob Pyle.
I always watched the TV show, and I always read all the comic books, and I have to admit I saw the movie a few weeks ago, and I really did enjoy it. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it. Everyone I've talked to has seen it, and they love it. Got to see it.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It really is. Well, that's Monday for this evening. We will be back in 1 week, next Monday night, on March 5th. And at that time, Phil's going to visit an unusual school.
That's right, Twyla. We'll be taking a look at special education for kids with certain disabilities. We'll find out who gets special education, what it is, and who pays for it.
And I will be venturing into the world of teenage discos. These establishments are fairly new, and they're the hottest thing in the feverish world of disco dancing. They do not sell alcoholic drinks, and they appeal to some very young dancers. How old are you?
11.
Why do you come to the Metro Disco?
To dance and meet girls. Yeah.
Why do you do this instead of something else, like go to a movie?
I don't know. You meet people, and it's a lot funner to learn how to dance and be a physical fit.
To dance and to meet girls.
Right.
We'll also take another inside look of Bob Pyle's Notebook. That's next Monday night at 6:30. Please join us.
For Phil Wilson, I'm Twyla Young. Good night.